Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Journey to VA podcast. This is Mark Smith, your host, aka the Male VA. And in this episode, I'm going to be talking to you about creating the right work environment for your VA business. So the reason I wanted to talk about this is for two different reasons. The first one is having a poor workspace is bad for your productivity. And the second one being about your health and well-being. So I was a trained mental health first aider in my previous employment, and I know how important it is to get your mind right, not only at work but at home as well. And in our case, most of us work from home as well, so there's no real escape. And so it's important for us to have the right environment to be able to work safely and in a positive environment, and also have that breakaway space when we need to take a break. And what I mean by that is, so for instance, as I sit here recording this, I'm at my desk which is actually part of my living room, and it's in one corner. And so if I sit on my sofa when I have a break, I can still see my computer setup and stuff, and it doesn't really feel like I'm taking a break. So here I am going to talk to you about the importance of creating a nice work environment, and what I have here probably isn't optimal at all. But I do know what's wrong with it, and so I put measures in place to counteract those, or to mitigate those at least. So one thing I do have is a very large desk. I've got my 2 monitors set up, which is great for productivity, and I also have everything I need within arm's reach. So I've got stationery on a top shelf, and actually if you head over to the blog page for this podcast, which is themaleva.co.uk/5, you'll be able to see my setup. It's also been posted on my Instagram at the Male VA, so you'll be able to see it there too. But basically what I've got is my monitor set up. I've got my mic and everything to the right of me, normal keyboard and mouse layout. I've got an Alexa to the left, which is obviously voice activated, has just lit up as I said that. So I will try not to say anything that's going to kick her off. And then on the top shelf, I've got some fake plants and stuff, and a few books, which I just find add a little bit of colour. I've also got a nice lamp as well, which gives me some decent lighting if, as the evenings are coming in, if I'm still working. But most importantly, this desk is sat right in front of a huge living room window. So at any time when I do want to take a break, I can literally just swing 90 degrees to the right, put my feet on the windowsill, and have a rest, and actually just take in some natural light, which is kind of one of the main reasons I did opt to have my office in this corner. It was in the opposite corner for a long time, and it was dark and dreary, and that was actually whilst I was still doing my work from home job in my previous employment. So towards the end of that, I realised actually that was becoming a bit of a drag. It was really dark, and even the lamp and the light on it just wasn't. There was no natural light over there. So one thing I would suggest you do is put your desk right in front of a window if you can, or at least have some natural daylight actually coming in on you. If you're just outside of the natural light or the rays or whatever of that natural light coming in the window, it does make a massive difference to your mood, especially as you're going to be sat at home, probably working on your own for the most part. It's really important that you have that natural light, and there have been studies, and if I find one relatively quickly, I'll link to it. But there have been studies that suggest that natural daylight is much, much better for your overall mood and stress levels than artificial lighting, which you probably knew already. But if you didn't, useful to know. So yeah, like I said, I've got my desk set up. Everything's within arm's reach. I've got plenty of space underneath my desk, so I can get my desk and my seating set up as you would in a workstation assessment if you were in an office environment. I've got this big living room window which looks out basically onto my front garden and the street, and so yes, there's a little bit of passing noise, but the daylight that comes in is just phenomenal first thing in the morning. As soon as I open the curtains, it's nice bright light and it's nice and airy, and it's somewhere that I really enjoy working. In terms of taking a break, like I said, my sofa is basically, if we're on a clock, it's behind me kind of at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock position. And if I sit there, I can see it all. So what I tend to do is just go out for a walk, or I'll go into another room, and I live in a bungalow, so actually it's only the living room, 2 bedrooms and a bathroom and the kitchen. But I will either go and sit in the garden. I've got a decent sized garden. Or if it's raining, I'll go and lay on the bed, read a book or listen to the radio or something, and just not be staring at the screen or staring at the same space that I've been looking at the whole time. So that's my home office spoken about. But what I also do is, and I've spoken about this on LinkedIn, I think, when someone popped a post up, or it might have been actually a post that I put up and in response to someone. But what I was saying was, I actually work on a Tuesday. I work from a couple of cafes. I go to a local Waitrose and I can park up for a couple of hours for free and work from their cafe. So, just get myself a tea. It's an excuse for a tea and cake in a cafe. Work for a couple of hours there. There's usually plenty of charging points as well, so I don't have to run off the battery barrel all the time. And I'll just do a couple of hours there. I tend to wear noise cancelling headphones and stuff and listen to music or another podcast during that time. It's really nice to actually get out and about and see other people. And whilst I can look out the window and see the occasional passerby, it's not quite the same as being in the hustle and bustle that you would potentially be used to in an office environment. And I know we've escaped that for a reason. But I'd imagine for most of us, the reason isn't people. And so it is nice to be around people just a little bit. I also try and have 1 or 2 phone calls in a day if I can. If I'm not too busy or bogged down in a web design project, I'll try and have a call. And if I don't have any calls booked in, I'll kind of ring a family member or something, or my girlfriend. So I am speaking to someone and having that interaction. It is important. I do spend quite a bit of time on social media, obviously, as part of promotion, and I'm in a couple of groups, but you can't just have all of your interactions over a keyboard, unfortunately. It is useful and good for your mental health and well-being to talk to people, to get out and see people when you can. And so they are some of the things that I do to achieve that. I hope that's been in some way useful. I feel like I rambled on a little bit there, just talking about my desk setup. But it's just useful, hopefully, for you to hear kind of how I've got mine set up. Like I said, you'll be able to go onto my social media and see that. I am at the Mail VA on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And you will be able to see a picture also on the blog post with the show notes for this episode. And that will be at themailva.co.uk/5. Thanks so much for listening. If you are listening on the iTunes or Apple podcast app and you are subscribed or you haven't subscribed yet, please do. If you haven't left me a review, I would really, really appreciate it. If you could, if you're listening on the website, great, that's fine. If you want to share the post, that would be fab, and that would just get it out to a few more people. And if you're a VA, or even if you're not, if you're a business owner, and you want to be a guest on this podcast, please drop me an email to mark@themailva.co.uk. I'm currently forming a list of interviewees that I can get on the show just to get their perspectives on some of the tools and techniques that people use, not only in the virtual assistant world, but also just in small businesses in general. So I've got a couple of good episodes coming up, but I would like to have a small back catalogue of interviews that I can publish over the next few weeks. Thanks for listening. I've been your host, Mark Smith. I'll see you next time.